One of the most requested features is the ability to run the Discover along with any GC seamlessly. This request has been fulfilled with the addition of Discover 10's Follower Mode. Follower Mode allows the user to set up runs on their preferred GC. With a click of the mouse, the Discover hardware will then prepare and listen for any inject signals. Upon injection, the Discover will start a new sample run. This process will continue until the MCT or disk start to warm up, the disk becomes full, or the Discover has not heard an inject signal for many hours. Follower Mode is available on Discover 10.0.3.130 and later. To enter into this mode, the user will go into the Toolbox tab, Default Settings, System. Here the user chooses Run in Follower Mode GC Initiate Sample Run. While in this mode, when the Discover runs out of liquid nitrogen or space on the disk, it will send a not ready signal to the GC. This means that the GC will not move on to the next injection. This saves samples from being wasted. However, if a user is running a multiple configuration setup, such as the Discover plus mass spec, then the continuation of the GC may be preferred. In order to accommodate this, there is another checkbox under the Follower Mode that reads, Allow GC injection after end of following. This will have the Discover go into a safe post-running configuration. After it has lost liquid nitrogen, or the disk fills up, the post-running configuration will turn off the diffusion pump, but leave all heaters on running temperatures so that the split ratio from the GC remains stable to the other detector. Now that Discover 10 is set to Follower Mode, the user can go to the Setup and Run tab and start a typical day's activities. After unloading, cleaning the disk, and any QC tests, the user will load, set temperatures, and start pumps, same as a non-follower mode. The edit sequence is where changes come in. Since the Discover 10 software is set up for following, not for inputting each sample, you will notice that many of the fields have been grayed out or are blank. The sample name will be the same for all runs in the follower collection period. When the runs are saved, they are saved with the associated injection time to allow correlation to the GC and other optional instruments. The fields in Discovered parameters are the same as the non-follower mode, except for max end time. This can be used as a set end time or a variable end time. Either way, the user should input the length of the longest GC method they plan to run. A variable end time has the software listen for a signal from the GC when the method has ended. We will talk more about setting up a variable end time at the end of this video. In the middle of the screen, you can see more information in the liquid nitrogen /runtime forecast section. Though not needed for running in follower mode, there are many inputs here that, if filled out, will give the user helpful information. For example, by adding the Discover parameters, number of runs, and current liquid nitrogen taken with the do or dipstick, the software will output maximum number of runs with current liquid nitrogen. Alternatively, it also gives required liquid nitrogen amount. The software will also take into account the usage of the disk and will output max number of runs on current disk. Please note that these will all be based on the max end time being the end time for all runs and does not take into consideration if it has been set up as a variable end time. Up on the ribbon, the Run button has been changed to Collect IR Data button. We like to say the follower mode listens for the GC to know when to proceed. With this in mind, the Collect IR Data button has an ear icon on it. This is the most obvious difference between the follower and non-follower modes. Once the Collect IR Data button has been pressed, the Discover is all set up and ready for the user to start their GC. The Discover hardware will send a ready signal to the GC once it's in running condition. Now we are moving on to the variable end time setup. The user can choose to have the end time be a set end time where all Discover runs will be the same length, or have the end time be variable. The variable end time involves setting up an external event on the GC method. This sends a signal to the Discover to stop the run after collecting data from the optics lag. In order to receive the external event, a cable must be added from the GC to the back of the Discover hardware. The specific event wire in the cable should pull to ground the TTL event input 1, which is pin 5 on the J6 start plug of the Discover start cable. As an example, here we will go through setting up an Agilent GC for variable end time. For an Agilent, we will be using event 8. Shown here, the wire from pin 8 blue goes into the J6 input 5 event 1, and the wire coming from pin 7 purple goes into J6 input 6 ground. Next is to set up or modify the GC methods. For the Agilent ChemStation software within a method, we go into the configuration page and turn valve 8 to switching valve. Lastly, we go into the runtime events page and set up the event. Here we want the beginning of the run to turn off the vent valve. Then we want to input 5 seconds or 1/10 of a minute before the end of the run and turn on the valve event. Finally, the end time of the method wants to turn off the valve once more. All methods that are being used should be modified in this way. Any method not modified will work as usual, but will have the discover continue to the max end time input in Discover 10's edit sequence. Please contact your local Spectre Analysis representative with any questions. Thank you for watching.